Ant-Man goes and he jumps and then he shrinks.
Hey, stop talking. Stop it.
It basically
No talking about Game of Thrones and no talking about the Avengers.
I didn't see it.
It basically just means like there's like different kind of focuses. Yeah, it's like a chapter.
So this will be the end of the Thanos storyline?
Yes.
Let's not talk about it.
Yeah, let's drop it, because I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
It's my favorite. Well, there was like the whole section where Laura's going to see which one's going to play what happens to you like 3 times.
Yeah.
And then I saw him change for the first time in Apprentice, and I was like,
Okay, let's get through 3 slides and then call it. So that you can work on essay, work on paper, work on Kias, should you choose to do so.
can I do the keys from like that?
What do you mean? No, that's done. Yeah, once we finish a unit, it's done. Goodbye. Sorry. All right, so we've said this a couple times that it seems to be a 30-year cycle when there's the latest fear of communism. And this is the 1950s version. A guy from your state, Senator Joseph McCarthy. So wear that with pride, man. And I, especially, because he graduated from the same school I graduated from, Marquette University. You won't find his picture in many places there. This is Joseph McCarthy. And I got to admire him because he has an ism, right? Now, I wouldn't say it's a good ism, but it is an ism. Does anyone know what McCarthyism is? Yeah, it's sort of a religion, I guess, if you want to technically define it as a religion. Very much so. McCarthyism is a phenomenon of it's one of the latest phenomena where by accusing someone of something, there's a presumption of guilt. So, for example, in Salem, 1600s, as soon as someone accused you of being a witch, the assumption was you were, and you had to dig yourself out of that hole. If you were accused in the 1950s of what? What do you suppose? What if you were accused of being a communist? Yep. So the accusation meant guilt, and then you had to dig yourself out of that, which is the opposite of the way it's supposed to be, right? You're supposed to be presumed not guilty, and they have to prove that you are. And then there's that whole thing of, we can look back today and say, so what if you were a communist? What's the difference? It's not illegal, but that's hindsight. That's today looking back. At the time, don't be a communist. So that's why I've got this interesting political cartoon of a guy climbing up this ladder because there's a fire up here, and he's going to bravely put it out because fire's bad, right?
No, wait.
But wait, what are we looking at here? Statue of Liberty. What's the fire represent? Yeah, right. Freedom of thought. Freedom of thought. Why is it illegal to be a communist? And I'm not. Please don't misunderstand me. I am not standing up here telling you that communism is good. I happen to believe that an economic system is pretty stupid. It does not reward incentive. It creates the lowest common denominator. Just again, think of it in terms of grades. If I were to average out your grades, those of you who work hard would stop working hard because what are you getting out of it? Unless you're a really giving person that really cares for your fellow man, communism doesn't work as an economic system. Okay. Also, it gives a lot of power to the state, and that's why so often communist societies become dictatorships. I mean, it's almost hand in hand because it gives so much power to the state. But that doesn't mean it's illegal to think that it's a good idea. We should celebrate diversity as far as ideas. McCarthyism was not. What the first 2 bullets represent are some examples of synthesis. Other times when the same sort of thinking occurred. Salem, accusation of being witch meant you were a witch. And then there are incredibly weird ways of testing. If you were, meant if you passed the test, you were guilty. But of course, if you didn't pass the test, that meant you were dead, right? So they drown you, and then if you came up alive, get back here, you're in trouble. Or they'd give you a broom and push you off a cliff. And if you flew away, get back here.
I thought the drowning one was like they threw you in a well, and then witches were supposedly like made of wood or something.
Oh, I didn't hear
And
that
then
one.
they were like, if you floated, you were a witch.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they put you on a scale with the duck. And if you came out the same, that one I wouldn't mind. Well, yeah. Or the Palmer Red Raids. That was the 1920s communist scare, right? When the under A. Mitchell Palmer, the Attorney General, raids were conducted in like 20 American cities, and people were deported for being communist. Which again, today we'd look and say it's not illegal to be a communist. No one's deported from the United States for having racist views. It's not illegal to be a racist. I know that's a weird thing to say, but it's not. It's not a weird thing to be a racist. It's sad and demented, but it's not illegal. Okay? But what seems to be going on here is they're criminalizing a form of thought, which today we would look and say, you can't do that. But it was done. And so the fourth bullet, fear of communism, often leads to an erosion of freedoms. Does it, in the name of keeping, here's a big question, one of the big questions of the whole class. In the name of keeping the country safe, does our government sometimes violate our rights? Right? And clearly, sometimes the answer is yes, right? They'll search your bags when you get on a plane. That violates your right to privacy, but it's in the name of keeping the country safe. But what else do they do? Does the government listen in on phone conversations? That violates your right to privacy. But I mean, there's probably a good intention here, right? They're trying to weed out terrorism, right? But what else? What else? Do they squash freedom of speech because they think what you're saying is dangerous? So they'll prevent you from giving a speech at a rally because they're concerned that I don't know about what he has to say. But wait, First Amendment is supposed to protect that. It's supposed to protect all forms of speech. Okay, if you want to know whatever ended up happening to the guy, Joseph McCarthy, he accused people of being communist. And, you know, at first it got traction because fear of communism, right? And then he started accusing people, and other people were like, you think he's a communist? And it would be like a 5-star general. You think that guy's a communist? And then so finally people started saying, do you have any proof? Do you have any proof? And of course not. He didn't have any proof. And so he was sort of shamed. He was censured by Congress, if you want to know what that means. Censured is basically Congress saying you've been naughty. And it's supposed to be a public embarrassment, right? He was not removed. He I don't know if he ever ran for election again in the state of Wisconsin. I guess I don't know. Okay. So another big thing that we've been looking at, and I would say here's a great piece of evidence that you could use to argue, hey, is the United States the oppressor or the liberator? Let's revisit segregation. So let's just step back and remind you of the process that led us to this point. So South secedes. North beats South. Union armies occupy the former Confederacy until the former Confederacy passes the 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, 15th Amendment. Does this sound familiar? I sure hope it does. Okay. And then there was that funky election where they really didn't know who won, and it came down to 3 states in the South. And there was this deal, this bargain made. All right, look, we'll let your guy win, said these southern states, if all Union soldiers leave the Confederacy. So they go. And then from that point, southern states from Texas all the way to South Carolina passed basically laws creating segregation. And they created Jim Crow laws, and they passed poll taxes literacy tests. Remember you took that literacy test? Okay, and basically created segregation. And so now we have black schools, black drinking fountains, white drinking fountains, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, well, we're finally getting to the point where, maybe the federal government that has not been in the South since 1877, it is now, 1950s, so it's been about 75 years of segregation in the South and lynchings and blacks having nowhere to turn. Maybe it's time the federal government steps back in and ends the ridiculousness of, well, here's an example, right? There's the white drinking fountain and the black drinking fountain. I mean, how ridiculous is this? It's the same pipe, right? And no, you drink over here. Now, remember, it was also racist to whites because they had to drink from that one. So, I mean, if you were a white person and you were over here, that's 2 more steps. So it favored black people over here and it favored white people over here. So it was equally racist. But of course you could say, like, yeah, but the white drinking fountain had that nice wood paneling. Look at the black drinking fountain. Nothing. You could injure yourself. Anyway, I'm simply introducing to you that in the 1950s, the federal government starts opening its eyes again to what's going on in the South. They've put the blinders on for 75 years. I don't see it, therefore it's not happening. And for one reason or another that we will start exploring, the federal government takes the blinders off, stops pretending it's not happening, and is going to address it from a federal level. Okay? So that would also be a good liberal conservative argument, right? The liberal would say the feds need to step back in, and the conservatives would say let states do it. They'll figure it out, or they won't. But let the states be the ones that figure this stuff out. Okay, so let's take a look at what starts happening. So we've got, it's called Seeds of Civic Rights Revolution. Let's start desegregating. And it starts, of course, as it usually does in the military. I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but it is the military that often is the vanguard of civil rights. You want to see where we're headed? Where's the military headed? So it was the military that, until President Trump reversed the decision, basically said, who cares if you're gay or straight? Now that it's seemingly going through a bit of a, every 2 steps forward, there's a step back. Whatever your opinion on gay, lesbian rights are, whatever. This is America, think what you want. But the fact is that under previous presidents, there did seem to be some progress of including the gay and that family, including them in the idea that they have rights and allowing them to serve in the military openly. Okay? Here we are, Truman desegregates the armed forces. Did you know that during World War II they fought in segregated units? We did know that. It was after World War II. It's just hard to say to the future Hitlers, hey, stop treating people that are different from you poorly. And meanwhile, our military's segregated. It's just, don't do as we do, but do as we say. It's hard to be the nation that is exemplary when, we just look at immigrants. And so you are looking, I know this is weird to think of it this way, but you are looking at a strategy for winning the Cold War right here. Hey, nations of the world, we're better than the commies. And look, we don't even segregate. Right? It was a Cold War maneuver, as much as just generally the right thing to do. And then we had the legal end of school segregation with the Supreme Court decision. You'll notice that we have the beginning of the end of segregation, executive, judicial. Here's what the president can do. He can desegregate the military. Here's what the Supreme Court can do. So I assume we know this story, but here goes. In Topeka, Kansas, there was a black family that lived really close to the white school. And just to make it even more confusing on the rainbow, their name was Brown. So the Browns were black and they went to a white school. Okay. They wanted to go to a white school. It was really close, right? It was in walking distance. But nope, segregated schools meant that Mr. Brown had to take his black daughter to the black school, and he had to drive her there. He had to drive her there every day. And so he just thought that was kind of stupid. So he goes to the school board and says, "Can my daughter just please go to the white school? It's right there. Can she just walk to the white school?" And they said, "No, she's black, Mr. Brown." And he did what any American should do. He sues them. He sues the school district, and it makes it all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court rules in this landmark decision. This is one of the biggies. Brown versus Board of Education, no more segregation based on race. You can segregate, but not based on race. Yeah, sure. You have all boys schools. You have all boys schools. You have all girls schools. You can even segregate, for like example of private education, right? There's a Catholic school right in this town. No. That is correct. That is correct. You are right. You are right. We have examples of segregation in this building. You know there are rooms I'm not even allowed in.
Wait, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, the bathrooms.
The bathrooms. You're exactly right. But my friends, that is segregation. Because what you have are two separate rooms. This room is for a certain part of the population, and this room's for a different part of the population. What's the difference?
We're just making sure we don't have another Boston.
I don't even want to know what you're talking about, but all right. Another video that shall not be on the website. All right. This drinking fountain is for a certain group of people. This drinking fountain is for another group of people, but there's water in both. So what's the difference? You're both getting water. It's not like we're depriving any population of water. And but the Supreme Court said it doesn't matter. You could have brick for brick the same exact school, and black Mr. Potter is talking to black students in the same way, and you still can't do it anymore. You can't do it anymore. You cannot segregate in public schools based on race. Now, I would like to know this, all right? No more segregation based on race, right? Schools must serve both groups. Can I today, and I mean right now, 2019, can I today have a jewelry store in downtown LA, stick my head out the door, and I see 3 black people walking out, and oh no. Shut the door, lock it, closed. And they come to the door, they want to get in, they want to buy some jewelry. And I'm sorry, we're closed. And can they say, wait a minute, you can't do that. Brown versus Board of Education. You cannot segregate based on race. You cannot refuse service to one group of people based on race. Are they right or am I right?
Well, but you closed your whole store.
Yes, I have. And then when they walk by, I open it again.
But I mean, if they were to walk by, and then another group of people were to like walk by while they're up there, right? It's still close to the people who walk by, right? Even if they were white.
Yes, I suppose you've created the perfect scenario where I could argue, no, we're closed to everybody, I'm hungry. But I think their point would be, no, you closed it because we approached.
But if you started eating a sandwich, how could they do that?
Yes, I agree with you, Jack, that it would be difficult to prove. I agree with you. I think you're missing the point, though. Can I refuse service today, private business? Can I refuse service today to people based on their race? Private company.
Yes.
How many of you think, yeah, I can? You're dumb, but you can do it legally.
With that first part, yes.
They have to
How many of you say, no, you can't do that? You can't. You cannot refuse service based on race. I'll give you another question. And by the way, we will try and answer these questions by the end of the year. Can a gay couple walk into my wedding shop? I sell wedding cakes. And can I say, I'm not selling you a cake because I don't believe in what you're doing. I think that's sinful. And can I say freedom of religion? Well, you say you cannot discriminate based on religion. Can I say I have the right to do what I'm doing because what you're doing violates my religious beliefs?
Fired.
Can I do that?
I don't remember what the decision was.
All right, stay tuned.
Is there an actual answer?
Yeah.
But actually,
This is a unique example of a Supreme Court reversing a previous Supreme Court decision. That usually doesn't happen because of this idea called precedent. What happens is that a current court will say, well, how did previous courts rule? We want to be consistent. But this case was a direct rejection of a previous case, and I'm wondering if anyone remembers. Yes.
I want to say Plessy versus Ferguson.
Very good. Plessy versus Ferguson. Plessy versus Ferguson was an 1896 Supreme Court decision. So this is 50-ish years later, which basically said, yes, you can segregate based on race. In that case, it was a railroad car. This is saying, no, you can't. No, you cannot have a black railroad car and a white railroad car. Cannot do that anymore. Now, this was narrowly focused on schools, but subsequent Supreme Court decisions would expand it to colleges, grad schools, busing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this was the beginning of a judicial effort. This is a presidential effort. This is a judicial effort to desegregate based on race. And Southern states said, screw you. We're not doing it. What you gonna do? Right? This is very much like previous Southern reactions to the decision of the United States government to do something. Do you remember the tariff of abominations? And South Carolina says, we're not paying that tariff. And Andrew Jackson saying, yeah, you are. And basically South Carolina said, if you force us, we'll secede. What are you going to do? And then 20, 30 years later, the South did secede because of Lincoln's election and the belief that the new Republican Party was an anti-slavery party, which they were. And so they did secede. Here we go again. Southern states saying, we're not, great, thank you, Supreme Court, for making that decision. We're not enforcing it. And since you're not here, it's not going to happen. Your move, national government. And Arkansas said we're not doing it, and Alabama said we're not doing it. The governor of Arkansas symbolically stood in the doorway of a school as black students approached and said, you're not walking in here. Right? Does anyone know? What happened? What happened? Go ahead.
Military.
Yeah. The president of the United States said, let's go, Marines, and sent the military in. For the first time since Reconstruction, U.S. soldiers were sent back into the South. Okay? Now, I want you to be careful here. It's not like the United States military sent soldiers from New York and Wisconsin and California, and they went to Alabama. No, what more likely happened was, what the more common event was, that the president, it's called nationalized the soldiers that were already in the state. So Wisconsin has soldiers in the state of Wisconsin. And the commanding officer of those soldiers, the Wisconsin National Guard, is the governor. But when the president says, nope, sorry, I'm taking over, now they answer to the president, not the governor. So the governor is saying, stand in the way, soldiers. And then the president says, get out of the way, soldiers. They get out of the way because, sorry, you're the president and you're the governor. You're my boss, president. Okay, that's called nationalization. Okay, so the federal reaction was the nationalization of the soldiers that were already in the South. The president's basically saying, I'm your boss now. Do what I say. Get out of the way. Not only get out of the way, escort those black people into the schools. Escort them. Force the schools to accept their attendance. There's Governor Faubus of Arkansas. He was one of the governors who refused the court order of desegregation. So what we have here is another constitutional crisis where the federal government is saying A and the states are saying nah, B. Now, here we go again. Here's the Hamiltonian Jeffersonian argument again. It's not dead. It's still an issue. 100 years after the Civil War, we still have states saying, not gonna do it. And now the soldiers are there, and here's an example, right? So here's the Little Rock Nine. Anyone ever heard of the Little Rock Nine? Right? Nine. I mean, imagine this. So the day before, the teachers of the black school in Little Rock, Arkansas, said, "Are there any volunteers who would like to be harassed and go to the all-white school?" And these 9 brave people said, "Yeah, I'll do it." What the hell? I mean, wow, that's guts, man. Imagine the ridicule that these 9 went through. But there's the Marine escorting them on their way. And just off is Forrest Gump, ready to pick up her books because she drops them.
Oh my.
That didn't happen. Okay. Any questions?
I have a question. Why is the red dots outlining it?
I don't know. It's pretty. I think there's some really good stuff here that you could use for really all 3 questions, actually. American involvement in the world. This was a Cold War strategy. Liberator or oppressor, liberator. Liberal or conservative. In this case, liberal meaning let's arm the national government with tools versus the conservative argument, nah, it should be up to states. And this is clearly an argument that, nope, sorry, the national government wins. So liberal. Yes?
Could you argue oppressor because it took them like 70 years to do this?
Definitely. Absolutely. Anyone else? Very good. Look at that. So what time does this class start?
Started at 15.
15?
Maybe like 20 minutes?
Oh, so you have 25 minutes.
Gooey lunch.
Fine. Or Kia. Or finish your dang essays. Come on. Or work on your paper. These things aren't going away by themselves.